What's up, people? Welcome to the comic book show. Oh, the comic book show. I don't even know what to say and everything. It's when this your friendly neighborhood DP Brown, basically coming at you on this Friday evening, October 17th. With another episode of the comic book show, or the Comicsburg show. I keep on saying Comicsburg show, but I will make that mistake several times until I get it right. All right. So that's what it's all about today. So thank you guys for, joining, thank you guys for checking us out. We love to, see what you got going on and, hearing from us basically here at Comicsburg. We are a self-publishing company. Basically we have like several different products that we put out. And we basically just want to, give you guys a chance to let us, let you know about all our wares and everything. So let me do like a bit of a house cleaning before we get into like our main subject here. Are comic book movies killing the comic book industry? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. So I won't take up too much of your time, but I did want to delve into that subject because there are certain, aspects of this whole industry that us creators go through. And, we go to like, these conventions like pop culture conventions, comic book conventions. And we get a lot, you get a lot of fans that go to the conventions, and are they there for like, the celebrities, or are they there for like, to pick up, actual content or books, hopefully the stuff that we actually put out when we're there, selling our wares and stuff. So, I want to ask this question because it's been, asked about, several times by, industry professionals, comic book fans, creators, people that are like in the industry about, how well comic book movies are doing. And is it in fact, benefiting like the industry? Is it, pros to their stuff? Is it cons to their stuff? So yeah, basically we'll talk about that. To get some some of the house cleaning out the way. Make sure that you're following us, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Follow us. Make sure that you follow us at Comicsburg, X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. If you're watching us on there, thank you. If you're watching us on Facebook, thank you. Instagram, actually, thank you. So just reminding myself, I got to make sure I go live with that. So if you're watching us on all those, platforms and everything, we thank you as well. We're doing this on a portrait form, so I'm trying this out. It was recommended, or actually inspired by, not recommended, but inspired by a man over at Spine Ticks, If Lordly. Shout out to you. And he's doing all his YouTube videos in portrait form. So basically want to experiment with this format to see how how well the engagement goes with this, doing like the live format and everything. But like I said, make sure that you're, also sending us some feedback, at info@comicsburg.com. We love to get all your feedback on everything that we do, whether it's for business stuff or, if you're just following like our comic stuff. We have like several stuff in the works right now. We got our Kickstarters going on with Memoirs of the Morbid. We got the Blain action figure, stuff going on. My comic, The Theme of Thieves, The Crazy Man Returns. We got the Trillion Trade paperback, Footpath. We just got a lot of stuff, happening this month in October. And some of those are actually scaling down and everything. So make sure that you're watching the Kickstarters and everybody's fees to see when those are actually going to end and everything. Okay. So make sure also you support your public library. I always got to say that. Make sure that you are going to the library because, there's trade paperbacks in there for you to read and for you to continue to support. If you can't get the stuff actually in the stores or can't afford it, because I know some of the prices are outrageous with comics nowadays, make sure that you're going into the stores. Into your public library and supporting that. Okay. Also want to mention too that we have some of our Comicsburg brethren, Grant, Marvin, Heronberg, shout out to Manny, William with Trillion. They're at Bell's Comic 30th anniversary event over at Grove City. That's happening tonight, and over the weekend and everything, tomorrow and Sunday. So make sure that, if you're in the Grove City area, if you're passing through PA and you happen to be in a Grove City area, make sure you stop by Bell's Comics. They're having a 30th event, anniversary event. They've been around for a minute. And they've just been holding on, supporting the industry through its trials and tribulations, and they made it to 30. So they're basically celebrating. So basically, we want to, give them a shout out. They're going to be at the event this weekend, so make sure that you're checking that out and seeing all our Comicsburg wares. And also, we got the Monaca Book Fest coming up at the beginning of November. We're now announced in October. Make sure that we're iron that out. But we're basically announcing it now for like the beginning of November. All right. So basically, make sure that you're checking that out. So to get to the meat and potatoes of what this tonight's subject is going to be, our comic book movies killing the comic book industry. So what say you? So comic book movies have been around for pretty much the longest, since and comic TV shows, since like early Batman stuff, Superman stuff, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. But comic book movies haven't really taken off really until like the Superman movies of the late 70s. All right. So Superman 1 and 2 was like one of those popular movies of that era, and it ushered in like, the realm of, let's get more stuff on the big screen as far as superhero wise. We got a few dozen in between that time, and we ended up getting like Batman in 1989, which really made the industry wake up and say, okay, this is maybe a viable thing that we want to invest into. But pretty much the big ones like Batman and Superman were the only ones they were really touching. Okay, Spider-Man and Blade came out in 1998, and it was a sleeper hit. Nobody really didn't expect Blade to do that well. But it ended up doing really, blockbuster numbers and everything for that time period. And it started off like really the rush of having comic book movies be a thing, in the industry and everything. One of the first Marvel movies actually really do good. X-Men came after that in the 2000s. And then it started being like a rush of Daredevil, Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi movies. That started to be really important for like industry type stuff. But what I'm asking here, all the way up until like the Avengers stuff now and everything, but what I'm asking here is, are comic book movies actually killing the comic book industry? Are we seeing any benefits of the movies actually benefiting the comic book industry, the industry that we're in, the industry that us creators are dedicated to? Are we getting any benefits of the residual stuff? Maybe not so much financial. Of course, we want it to be like that, but sort of like the tailwinds of things that happen on the screen. Does that carry over into comic shops, and how do comic shops fare? When comic book movies do come out. Okay, so basically, yeah, just wanted to touch on that. And I mean, if you want to actually participate in this discussion and everything, just feel free. I'm gonna post into the comments our link, and you could go on StreamYard, the StreamYard link, and the guest star with me and everything. Guest star with your boy DP Brown. Basically wanting to talk about how you feel about comic book movies and their effect on like the industry and everything. Okay, so I want to bring over a file that I seen about comic book sales that was really intriguing back in like the that sort of like details data from like when comic book movies first ran up until the Avengers Endgame came out. So let me pull up that file right quick. Let me stop sharing. It's the wrong thing right here. So I'm sharing the screen. All right, here we go. Share the screen. All right. All right, so this is a STEM's sessions that I site that I found and everything, and they were kind enough to put data together regarding like release dates and stuff. 2008 Iron Man came out, and started a real boom when they initially said comic book movies were like being a fad and everything after the Daredevil, after like the Batman, Joel Schumacher stuff and everything. When it was starting to wane and everything, what was left, comic book movies and everything, they thought it was a fad that was just going to end. Iron Man came out and sort of like changed the whole game and everything. As soon as that end credit scene where Nick Fury came and asked Tony Stark if they're, that he was part of a bigger world, that he know he was part of a bigger world, and Iron Man didn't know, Tony didn't know anything that he was talking about. It sort of like gave us an indication of how big this thing could go, and it sort of just kept us just riding this wave, ever since and everything. And this thing just won't die. They want to kill the comic book movie, the pop culture as far as that, but it just wouldn't die. So this highlight here, this data point, basically looks at how the scenarios were when the Iron Man came out, before and after the movie came out. How did it affect it? So it says right here, at first glance, the data appears to support both scenarios. Not only were orders increased for the month prior to the release, but there were also reorders of the book. Okay. When the movie was released. Plus, the post-movie average orders only cover 25% higher than the pre-movie orders. During this time, they did relaunch the Iron Man title, and typically, what ends up happening with these comic book movies, they release the movie, but don't really promote the comic that the movie may be based off, or some of the elements of the comic the movie may be based off of. So the publisher, Marvel in this instance, they'll see like a influx, of people interested in Iron Man per se, like this, for maybe like that month. And then as soon as the movie dies, everything else dies. It just goes back to regular stuff. But what I'm asking here is this influx, what is sustainable? What is something that'll keep us or fans enthusiastic, or casuals that come in that may be interested in Iron Man, or other books that are based off comic book movies? What keeps them interested in buying month after month and keeps the whole thing going and everything? So I'm asking those questions, and basically just trying to find the answers. And are comic book movies doing enough to, like I said, basically support and promote the comics that they come from? So when we look at the data right here, it pretty much says, some movies do, like Captain America, in 2011, the first Avenger that came out, there was a spike for that month, but there weren't really much reorders as far as that and everything. Okay. The Avengers came out. So they're saying pretty much where the Avengers came out, it was one of the biggest movies of phase one, but had no impact on the orders of Avengers comics. Now, this is really crazy, because Avengers is one of the most popular, comic book properties and intellectual property out there and everything. So why wouldn't you see like a really, spike increase, regarding that? Why wouldn't, you really get that after, seeing the movie and everything? You may have a slight increase post-movie, but due to variant covers and other incentives and stuff, despite the increase, you can see like the data trending towards pre-movie sales had it not been for the interrupted by relaunch. So typically they relaunch, some of these publishers relaunch titles just to get the casuals into the stores. Yes, Marvin, I am vertical. Trying to experiment, Marvin, going vertical and everything. Hope it looks good on your end and everything. But yeah, so we're so you may see like the influx of even a slight increase, but not really that much, based on the fact of, I don't know, why won't people, just, stay into it? Why won't, when you get more casuals, if the property is that big and everything, why aren't you getting more casuals coming in and spiking, Then it says with other relaunches, the order spiked at roughly 3 times and settled around 20% for higher before. and they cite this is further evidence in favor of relaunches, not movies increasing orders. So that's pretty interesting. Relaunches, not the actual movies, not the actual product that the stuff is based on, is making all this happen. So so I guess the idea is when the movie comes, you just relaunch the title in the number one, and you get like the speculators, people that come in and just like number ones and just wants to get the first issue and then they're out. They're not buying anymore. Why aren't they sustaining the story? Are they even reading the product that they're getting? So that's another thing too. You want to have them, the people just read the stuff. So why not? So what's going on there? And like I said, I'm getting back to the point of why do studios not promote the comics they're, based the movies off of? I mean, wouldn't that make more sense if you feed, if you feed if you feed the pig, the whole sets of food and all that stuff, why not regurgitate some of that stuff back into the properties or the industry, the publishing that feeds you all that stuff and everything? They get the ideas, but they don't want to give back. So they rather just Alfred, there's no passwords on the stream and everything. So if you got the email, you should be able to go ahead and join and everything. So just go ahead and just hit that StreamYard thing and you should be able to come on. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. Got passwords on the stream, so I have to check into that page. So I'm sorry about that. So yeah, so basically you're one hand is not paying attention to the other, and just basically taking advantage. Comic book movies make so much money. I guess they're feeling that it's not really worth it to put a lot of time and promotion into promoting the comics that they're coming from. And I think that's really doing comic books, movies, and the comic book industry in the service. So are movies killing the comic book industry? I guess in a way, yeah. So while they are they're promoting, well, they're using like the ideas and everything from the comics, they're not actually promoting, like I said, the stuff that came from. Wouldn't it be nice if all those thousands of trailers and stuff you get from the prior, from the movies in the beginning of a program, a movie and everything, at least you get one or two of those promoting a comic it actually comes from. You only need like 30 seconds, 15 to 30 seconds and everything. But we get 2-minute trailer after 2-minute trailer, and we get thousands of trailers before movies nowadays that we just have to sit through before the movie, actually comes on. So it's a little bit frustrating and sort of disingenuous by Marvel and DC to a degree. DC tried a bit, but I think, they're just not really paying attention, but Marvel is really egregious in not actually promoting anything when it comes to their, publishing, Footpath, when it comes to like comics and stuff. And it's just so disingenuous and just not right, period, and everything. And I think it kills the industry because, number one, people, while they know it comes, these products, these IP come from like, comics and stuff, they don't really take the whole thing really that serious if they're not telling their customers that, okay, this is where such ideas come from. This is where the certain such storyline came from and everything. Why make the effort when there's just so much content out there for people to read, enjoy, you're flipping across your screens and all that thing. We're doing this thing vertical, we're flipping back and forth, on different stuff. So why put an effort to sit down and read something, when it's not even being, catered to you or promoted to you and everything? I know like a bunch of, individuals who love like comic book movies and comic book shows and everything, but don't touch the comics that they come from, and that's such a disappointing thing, and to me, it's just something that just needs to be, just looked at a little bit closer by like, the comic book industry or the comic book movie industry as a way to help support, the comic book industry and everything. A way it would support and help is the fact that, you got these creators and these publishers, Image, Marvel, DC, Comicsburg, IDW, when it comes to going to the conventions and doing just things outside, you're really giving an industry a boost as far as like people's knowledge, and especially casuals' knowledge of everything that needs to just flow back. And like Marvin is saying that everything needs to flow back to the source, or else it's a waste and everything. Yes, 100% agree. I mean, if you're taking stuff from the source, it has to flow back to the source and just basically just loop itself. So if you want this industry to sustain itself and to not be wasteful, and I think we're at the point right now. They talk about comic book fatigue or comic book movie fatigue and everything, and if that's a real thing, I thought it wasn't. I thought it was like a thing where, back in the early or late 2000s, people were saying this thing was just going to die and everything, and then it got resurrected with like Iron Man, like I said earlier in the podcast. But with things happening now with like the MCU, just winding itself down and not really coming out with great movies. DC stuff has not really been that great. Casuals are seeing now that things are not really that great as far as like these type of movies, and don't really have the quality that usually came with them, what they expected. And granted, you can't do the same things all over again. Like, you can only go to for like the first time only so many times. It can only be one first time Avengers movie that combines everything, and you can only do like Endgame so many times. They're going to try it again with Doomsday and Secret Wars when it comes out. So we'll see how successful that is, and if casual fans and just people period respond. But wouldn't it be nice if after those end credits, if we don't have like a waste of like a throwaway scene and everything, it actually shows like the comic itself. Not to say that people will stay to the end of that, but just advertise the comics and let people know the issues that are with it, the inspiration with it. Then people read the stuff, or maybe even suggest it to their friends or family members, or what have you. They flow the stuff, like Marvin said, to comic book stores. You get more of a push into stores and stuff. People curious. If you don't say it, then people won't know. And people and the thing I learned with sales and everything, if you don't ask, you don't get. So we never comic these comic book movies never ask for the sale as far as like comic books as far as that. And don't advertise. So of course people aren't really paying attention. They don't really know. And it does such a disservice to comic shops when comic shops have to do the bulk of the work to explain, some of the stuff that people were seeing like in like movies or the casuals and stuff. Sure, it's fun to them and that's what they're there for and everything, but it would be such a help. And maybe we've even passed the point. It will be such a help if the comic book movie industry, especially DC and Marvel, was to give more promotion to the material that the books come from. So are comics made for just IP to just sell in different forms? So I mean, maybe the DC Marvel are just looking at these comics as just inspiration and ideas to flow into their movies, and they're just ideas. They're just farming places for lost leaders and everything, just for places for them to get their ideas for their movies and stuff. So the comics are just become just a big farming plant. So you got all these publishing stuff, and they're just creating and making paper and wasting it, killing trees and everything, just to make themselves ideas for the properties and movies and stuff that really make the big money, that really, put forth the effort for the stuff that they would really, actually want to put out to make the chunk of change and everything. So what happens when that stuff dies? What happens when that comic book fatigue is really real and it just, I see this manga stuff just coming in, and anime and everything. We had that Demon Slayer movie that just did some bonkers stuff, globally and every stuff. I see that stuff just, slowly just maybe it may end up surpassing like the comic book stuff. And while I would love to hang on to that stuff, it would be a really, a shame if the studios didn't really pay attention to what's going on, in that industry and how it's just in the industry and how it's just changing and stuff. So it's disappointing if all they're looking at is just the comic book publishing companies just farming ideas for other platforms. It makes it just seem like, okay, we're just doing the work, and hopefully maybe somebody picks us up into some big platform movie or TV show. But that's few and far between for these creators. We want to actually create these things for the people and actually get the platform of comics more well known, so more people can go into the shops, the stores to get these products. Nowadays it's very important to do trade paperbacks, which is what we'll be letting you know about Comicsburg trade paperbacks pretty soon here. So people can actually have square bound stuff instead of floppies to put into their homes and stuff, put in their bookshelves and everything. So that thing is really important. Also, do creators deserve more ideas and the characters? Do creators deserve more for the ideas and characters they create for big publishers? So it's the two sides to that thing. So if you're working for Marvel and DC, more than likely you're work for hire. Okay, unless you have a special, contractual thing, or if you're well known where you can dictate your terms and everything. But if you're a work for hire, if you create a character for them, that character is theirs. They own the character. They can do whatever they want. They don't have to give you credit. They don't have to pay you or do anything if that character becomes popular, if it becomes like an animated, movie, or actual blockbuster, movie, like I was, saying in the beginning. They don't have to do anything to, for a creator. Now, is that fair? Business is business. Business, it's all about the terms that you create. If you know that you're going to create a character for a publisher, then you basically, I don't want to say that you have to suffer the consequences, but like I said, business is business, and you just go about your business. You're there to work, to do a job. And if you're working a regular job, you do things for a company, for the company, Now, on the other side of that, the studios and the publishers, maybe they should have a little bit more leeway to the stuff that that they let creators create, basically giving a little bit more share to the pie. You want to make sure that the creators are happy, if they're creating product for you. So it's a two-way street. If you're working for a company and just feel like you're being used by that company, the chances of a really dope creator going to another company and getting a good deal or a better deal and everything is high. You want to treat the creator like they want to be treated, that they're doing stuff from their heart, they're pouring their stuff out, these ideas and getting excited about stuff. But at the end of the day, they're realizing that work isn't really theirs. It's such a disenchanted thing. Like Chris Claremont, for instance, did all that work for X-Men all those years and is not really seeing much from it. They got all his ideas, all the he really made the X-Men in the 80s and 90s and everything. And they're not really paying Chris Claremont the amount that he deserves from that. So many storylines, Wolverine, Rogue, Storm, all the ideas that you see maybe on X-Men 97 and the X-Men movies that will eventually be coming up and have come back out. He's not really getting a lot of residuals from that and everything, if any, because Marvel owns the X-Men. Okay. So do they, but that's the contract he signed, and he was work for hire. That is what it is and everything. A lot of the stuff that those creators did in the past have paved the way for people, like an Image, for instance, in the early 90s, when a lot of the 7 creators split from the big 2 and created their own thing so they could own their own, product, because they realized their worth was a big thing back then. Okay. And it really gave way to creators just saying, okay, well, I know I'm a really good, artist or writer or what have you. Let me start creating stuff on my own and actually putting it out there. Start with Marvel to get my name up, and then go off on my own to actually make my own thing and everything. So Image right now is one of the biggest. It's the third biggest publisher out there, and they're doing a lot of non-superhero stuff and with a lot of creator-owned stuff. In fact, their whole thing is, the creator owns their own stuff. They're just there to publish it and advertise it and put it out and everything. So that's a beautiful thing, and they've done a really excellent job in curating creators that put out quality product and stuff. So shout out to them. IDW. Boom Studios and everything, they do like, IP stuff. But for the most part, these are do give creators a chance to put their stuff out on their platforms on their own, to get their stuff out. So yeah, it's a big thing. And like I say, I invite you guys to come on and talk about, some of the stuff that we talk about and everything, as far as this, because it's a really big thing that's been bugging me and some of my Comicsburg brethren. About whether these comic book movies are even worth it to the industry and everything. Do you see like a spike? Do you see like a any benefit besides the fact that it brings attention to like the IP? And do you see that going into the industry? One thing I do see when I go to comic book conventions and I do promote and do my stuff and everything, the Theme of Thieves. Make sure that you're going on comicsburg.com to check that out. But one thing I do see is I see a lot of, pop culture, especially pop culture type conventions where, fans come there for the celebrities. So you get the draw in, and I understand that you got to get, a draw in, but they come there for celebrities, and you really don't have a whole lot that stay there for like the product and everything. You get like a lot that come there for like the product with, comics and everything, but it's a shame that they don't really, it's not a lot of people reading like they should, like how you want nowadays. They're reading like stuff online and stuff of physical material like books and trade paperbacks or floppies and everything. It's not enough of that to sustain that. So at these conventions, you get like a lot of conversations, and you do you run into different scenarios and stuff. And Comicsburg has been, pretty successful as far as, getting the word about our products and everything. But it will be one thing it will be so helpful if, these comic book movies, like I said, would go back, to the industry stuff and everything and promote like comics so people can have an awareness of there's ideas and IP. And it's just things that come out, these things that they should actually be aware of when if you want to get more excited, if you want to leave the movie and be more excited about knowing more about like a character or a scene or what have you, there's a comic store to go to or a site to go to or what have you. There's literally none of that. All right. So that was my big rant. That was my big rant about like the industry and everything, and hopefully it'll get better. And I've been in it for a number of years now. Comicsburg affiliates have to, and we're just keep on trucking and everything. So hopefully it'll get better for the industry and for the platform itself to get better. You got webtoon stuff out there right now, which is really popular. But I see the industry just heading towards like the digital realm and everything, which is okay because it's always changes. It's always going to be art that comes out. It just the venue that comes out maybe ends up being different. All right. So the next thing I want to do is basically go through the Kickstarters again that we're offering this month, and you guys can see what we got going on. Let's first talk about the Edge Blain action figure. All right, so let's go through that. So I want to pull up my man Marvin Wynn. No, I don't want to do that. So let me stop sharing right here. You guys got to bear with your boy for a minute. All right, so the Edge Blain action figure. So we got my man is almost at 10 grand. Okay, so 15,000 is still to go, and he got 11 days left. Woo! we're gonna make it though. You know, got 73 backers, so it's still time to back this, guys. You know, it's a GI Joe style action figure made with from loose collectibles. And Marvin just got like some really good stuff going on. Is offering like a one shot with this. So make sure that you guys are going to his make sure that you guys are going to the Kickstarter here and see what's going on there. We're going to play the video right quick. Any day now. Uh-oh. What's going on? I'm trying to play your video. What's going on there? No. Try this again, Morbid. Let me try it again, buddy. What's going on here? All right, so we'll play it without the sound. And then we'll get a little bit of music, you know, in the background there. What's going on with the sound there? Technical difficulties. Yep. Well, as you can see, you know, Marvin has like the action figure there. Really good looking. You know, you got the front, the back, and these different posable forms. You know, it's a really good this is a really good, you know, Kickstarter to actually, you know, back, because this is the first action figure that Comicsburg is producing. You know, the Edge has been a really popular, you know, comic that we've been producing for like a minute here. And it's just something that you just want to jump on, and it's a perfect collectible, especially if you're into like, you know, toy collections and everything. So just perfect for your, you know, collection. Make sure that you back it. We're at 62%, and we're going to hit that 15,000 before, you know, the campaign ends. Got 11 days to go, people. Make sure that you go into like our the link in the show notes, and you know, you'll get everything. You'll get everything as far as going into like the Kickstarter there. All right, next thing I want to get into is we'll get to let's get to my stuff. Yeah, the Theme of Thieves. All right. So let me stop sharing here. All right, so Theme of Thieves is about two teens and a mysterious being, that guy right here in a red suit. They're traveling through time, and they're trying to solve a mystery why people disappear in the present. So if you like Lost, Quantum Leap, The Wire, it's like three of my favorite TV shows, all put into one thing. Let me see if I can play this without the technical difficulty.
This is your friendly neighborhood DP Brown, writer.
So instead of playing these videos, I'm just going to talk through the thing. So that's that handsome guy right there, DP Brown. So this is a you know, lady talking about, you know, the comic and everything. So basically, what if you lived in a world where people just randomly disappear, and there's no rhyme or reason as to why this happened? It's been happening since the 1800s. All of a sudden, you know, you're at Thanksgiving or at a birthday party, and one of your friends just randomly disappear. This is what the Theme of Thieves is. It's about people who take and basically just never get back. Okay. Basically you have artwork by Danny Eakins and Ruben Gonzalez. It's inspired by people who it's inspired by Lost, Quantum Leap, The Wire. Those are like three of my favorite TV shows that were like put all into like, you know, one comic there and everything. So I had a ball just creating this thing, and it's been doing really good. Finally, right now on a trade paperback version that collects 1 through 4, that was in stores last year. Okay, so basically, we're doing this Kickstarter to get the funding to get more printed so we can put them into stores next year. Okay, and like I said, and the whole thing is creating a square bound format so it can fit on people's shelves, so it could fit near novels, fit near legitimate books. That's what we're doing these Kickstarters for, to have hardbacks, or more of a solid back for the reading pleasure of folks and everything. Right. All right. So that's the Theme of Thieves right there. So we'll go ahead and stop that. All right. All right. And the next thing I'm going to get to, I'm not sure why we had that. Also, make sure that you're subscribed too. So Marvin has a Substack. Go to comicsburg.com. Make sure that you guys are following us, like I said, all over social media. Make sure that you go to comicsburg.com and get the everything as far as our subscriptions and stuff. We give you like some pretty decent stuff. So make sure that you're doing all that. Let's get to Memoirs of the Morbid. Let's see what's going on with that. Since we obviously can't pay audio today, we'll just share some of the visuals that my man Grant has with his. Bam. It is just technical difficulty night. Okay. Jeez. All right. All right. All right. So this is the visual. So Memoirs of the Morbid is like an anthology. It has about 4 or 5 different creators that create short stories. And it's Halloween spooky season. So, this is a really great get for Halloween. You're definitely going to want to, check this out. If you're into spooky reading, especially spooky comic reading, has some really great visuals. Grant, he's done really great with the Memoirs of the Morbid series. He had the blue, the red, and now the orange one. What this volume is. It has this Kickstarter going on, and I want to say we're pretty much almost funded, if we're not funded, already with this Kickstarter and everything. But I just love the visuals, and if you could hear the audio, just make sure that you go into all their Kickstarters, because the audio is good on there. Why it's not good in this format, I'm not exactly sure, but. Yeah, so Grant has 17 days to go, almost to the 2,000 goal. So we're almost there. So, and we got like a lot of backers and everything. So make sure that you guys are going there. Okay. So the next thing we're going to get to is let's look at Footpath right quick. Okay. So Footpath is by my man Paige Alfred. And I'm glad I'll remember this time, because he got on me last week for not, showing the stuff until the last minute and everything. So shout out to my man Paige. And it's 32 pages of heart-pounding, rapid-fire action for people who like G.I. Joe, Birds of Prey, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It just must be like a crazy night and everything. Okay, so. Got that showing right there. So, yeah. So if you like G.I. Joe, Birds of Prey, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., this lady we have here with Chloe here and everything is attacking this. Different stuff. The action is really great people working like really great. Make sure you guys got 12 more days to go. We've already reached goal. So Paige, shout out to you. We've already reached goal, for Footpath and everything. So definitely proud of that. Comicsburg just doesn't, Comicsburg is like 100%. We are 100% so far, so we're hoping to keep that going and everything. All right, so the next thing we're going to check out here, check out Trillion right quick. So let's see what's going on with that. Cataclysm comics. All right, so so we got this. We got about 27 days to go, and the goal is only 500. We're already at 107 so far. So we got a few days, to get this done. A lot more time left. Trillion is really good. It's about this lady who basically gets $1 trillion to get, you know, get her you know, superhero stuff on and everything, named Trisha Leone. So basically, just to read it, Trisha Leone is left for dead after a hit and run incident. Her family was too poor to pay her medical bills. However, Midas International, an experimental company formed by Richard Collins, gave the family an offer. Trish will be saved and augmented to be better than ever. Then she will belong to the Midas International as their property, doing several odd jobs until she is finally able to pay off her $1 trillion debt to Midas, aka Hero Lucians. Man, that's just a crazy concept. So make sure that you guys are going to check that out. Another Comicsburg affiliate, got some really great artwork, some really good covers and everything. So this is something that you're definitely going to want to make sure that you're back. Trillion, we got that going on. You see the last thing. Oh, we did pretty much everything. Okay, so we got all the Kickstarters out the way. So basically, I want to, you know, thank you guys for, you know, checking us out. All right, just making sure we have Memoirs. I put up Blain, Trillion, Footpath, Theme of Thieves, and we just got, you know, a lot of stuff, you know, going on. And I want to thank everyone who, you know, checked us out tonight. Your boy ran solo, but got it done, and did it in a portrait format. So I was, you know, super happy about that. So yeah, so our comics books, movies killing the comic industry, it's up in the air. If you like comic book movies, you know, make sure that you guys are going to the store and supporting the product that the movies came from. You know, shorten inspiration and everything. Oh, one more thing I did want to add. I'm gonna give you a sneak peek to my little mini motion comic and everything. So let me go ahead and play that for you right quick.
1805, Sparta, Georgia.
Maybe
blankets
not.
the southern-style house. The moon hangs
So
high,
you got,
casting
like,
its
the
ghostly
sound that's
glow
just
on the
not
quarters
working
and
tonight.
shed nearby. Shadows stretch unnaturally across the ground, whispering secrets of the night.
Maybe I'll
Inside, a man and
preview this next week for you guys and everything. Let me try one more thing. If that doesn't work,
their breathing soft and
I
steady.
guess the sound is just not working tonight, people. So pretty much, thank you for, you know, coming out to see us tonight. We'll be back here next Friday night, 7 p.m. The Comicsburg show. You know, doing the things that we do, talking about comics, and we'll have a new subject to talk about and everything. All right. So peace out, and I'll see you when I see ya. All right.